What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone, we got David from the Almighty Havok. Great to talk to you again, man.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's so awesome to have you here. So the new album is simply titled Five, and these two singles that are out, Post-Truth Era and Phantom Force, could this almost serve as like a clear representation of the entire album, or is this kind of just like the tip of the iceberg in a way?
I think it's more tip of the iceberg. We've got a lot more curveballs on the record that aren't really displayed properly just by listening to those two songs.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that this is like just conceptually a direct follow-up to what we heard on Conformicide, or do you think that this is kind of like a new start in a way for Havok?
I think it's a continuation of where we've been in the past. I don't think like we're moving so far outside of the box that we're unrecognizable. But I think that on every record we seem to push our boundary box outward a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
We sneak in a little bit more of our non-metal influences on every record, and lyrically, on this record, we also went some places that we've never gone before. So,
interesting.
It's definitely an expansion from previous work.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, from listening to these two singles, it already does sound like that. And what I find unique is, like, maybe this could just me being, an avid listener of Havok, but, like, when you compare, like, Burn to Time Is Up to Unnatural Selection, Conformicide, and this one, I feel like every record does stand out. It's fair to say that maybe you have a formula, or do you still take a new approach to everything?
We don't set out to have, like, this whole album needs to be like this. We just kind of have, like, I guess, a general outlook of what we want to be doing creatively and just kind of pursue that. We don't necessarily sit down and say, like, all right, we want this album to be a little slower. We want this one to be a lot more technical and progressive with longer songs. We don't really, like, plan that. It just kind of naturally happens. But new ideas get sparked, and sometimes we use really old ideas and incorporate those into new recordings. Mm-hmm. There's some riffs that are on the new album that were actually written when, like 10 years ago. We just never got around to using them.
Yeah, you never know. You have like a riff or a song that you put aside, and it'll be a B-side one day and end up being like the biggest hit you'll ever have, right?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we revisit our riff pile and stumble upon something that we thought was just whatever, and all of a sudden we hear it in a new way, and we make a realization like, oh man, the first half of that riff is really cool, we could just repeat that, or the second half of the riff is a really good tail for this other riff that I have. Revisiting old stuff I think is a good idea because you hear things with a new ear. You have a new perspective when you revisit it years later. Yeah,
definitely. And I'd imagine it's almost kind of like work comes out of work too, right? Like maybe if you had like a really cool riff that you wrote on Time Is Up, but you put it aside, and then after, touring off of Unnatural Selection or Conformicide, you could like approach it with like, I guess, more technical, like more about yourself on a technical level, you can make it even better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean when I say that you've got a new perspective and you just hear it in a different way. And your brain will think of different things you could do with it versus when that riff was written.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're all broadening our horizons and getting wiser and gaining a greater perspective of things.
Yeah.
Hopefully. That's the way I hope we're going.
That's what I see in it, definitely. And kind of like what you said earlier, you mentioned like is there ever a time where you have like a preconceived idea of what you want to do, or is like the majority of your stuff like rather improvised?
Well, that's a really tricky question because sometimes, there is the intention of like, okay, I want to write a fast song, and you make that the focus, or sometimes the focus is to make something that's more melodic. Or sometimes the focus is to make something that's not very melodic and more rhythmic. So that's a tricky question to ask. It's really on a song-to-song basis what the end goal is. But sometimes you sit down with the guitar and you just start messing around and something good comes out, and that in that regard, things can come out of it improvised. But a lot of the writing that we did was revisiting riff piles, of riffs that we've collected over many years. Just going back and like looking at what's in our riff bank and picking out, like, highlighting the ones that sound interesting at the moment.
Definitely. I would definitely say that. And, one thing I was always fascinated by with your riffs and even in the solos, like, do you have, like, a background in theory? Like, what scale or chord or mode that you're working off of? Or do you not even think about that when writing riffs?
I don't really think of it much when I'm writing riffs. Every once in a while it'll come in handy for what's possible to do with harmonies and what's possible to do, like, in the bass versus the guitars. I took music theory when I was in high school and studied it a little bit. I took music theory and composition and stuff like that. But I'm not like a super genius with it, but I know enough to get by and have a fairly good understanding of the relationship between notes.
Yeah, I feel like I was having a discussion with a couple of musicians who have like classical backgrounds, and they say sometimes it could be too dictating and like maybe limit you in a way, right?
Yeah, because then you have you have like the scientific blinders on, where you're not looking outside of that. I can understand how that could be limiting. But yeah, that doesn't really interfere. My theory of knowledge doesn't really interfere with writing. If anything, all it does is help.
Definitely. Now, we talked a lot about riffs, but in terms of vocals too, is there ever a time where maybe a lyrical concept or a story or subject matter could influence the song as well, or do you need music before you even lay down a single word for lyrics?
Normally the music comes first, but every once in a while I'll have a phrase written down, and some of the music will be written. I'll have a look at a phrase in my lyrics, and it'll click. That song, that phrase, that's definitely for this song. Like whatever this lyric is, this idea totally fits this music. Kind of like you're picking when you're looking at lyrics versus music, you're basically picking like the theme song for a movie. It's kind of like that. You got to figure out what the lyrics, what kind of story the lyrics are telling, and you try to match the music to that. Every once in a while it doesn't match, and that's fine. There's some songs that sound really upbeat and happy that are actually, if you listen to lyrics, really a bummer, and vice versa. Sometimes there's a really bummer, minor, depressing music, but the lyrics are actually good and like positive.
Yeah.
So it doesn't always have to match, but I think it's not unwise to have them match.
Definitely. But I'd imagine nothing could be more heartbreaking, right, than having like the best lyrics ever and how they're always like either one syllable over or under like any arrangement that you write as well, right?
Oh, that happens so often. That's a huge reason why I tend to write music first. Because our music is not like, 3-chord songs where, I write the lyrics first and then I just kind of like play some whatever music behind it and sing the words. Normally for me, the music is, what really is the meat and potatoes of the song for our band. So it's really hard to just write a song and a vocal melody and then write music around that, because generally our music is a little more involved than like a singer-songwriter with an acoustic guitar playing 3 or 4 chords.
Yeah, definitely. It's not like your stuff is fairly complex, so like almost like if you're one beat or one note off, it's like you can't get away with it.
Yeah, it can really destroy the entire rhythmic pattern or just flow of the whole thing, because so much of our music is very precise and tight and kind of structured in a certain way to make everything kind of fit like a puzzle pieces together. Everything like fits right into its nice little spot. Yeah. And yeah, if you've got a lyric part that's got 5 too many syllables, it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, I've always said that, like, especially for the style of music that you play, like the best analogy is almost kind of like chromosomes within a cell. If one chromosome is slightly over or under, it can mess up the entire cell. So that's how I kind of looked at that in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of like cooking. If you put way too much of one ingredient, it kind of fucks up the whole dish.
Yeah, and too little, same thing. And that's why I don't cook. But another thing, like one thing I was curious about is in order to get inspired to write, whether it's for lyrics or for riffs or anything, do you kind of have to like put yourself in a certain place at a certain time in order for like inspiration to come through, or do ideas just come out of nowhere sometimes?
Sometimes an idea will spark while I'm doing something else, and I'll run in, grab a guitar really fast, and try to figure out how to play it. Or sometimes I'll just Beavis and Butthead the riff right into my phone, in my voice notes in my phone. That's a pretty common thing to do, to just get an idea down really quick when you don't have a guitar, but something pops into your head. And when it comes time to like do actually like sit down and grind on writing, when I sit down at my desk where I work on my music, I could start sifting through riffs, and sometimes that will inspire me to pick up the guitar and start adding on to it. Or sometimes if I'm not sifting through riffs, I'll just sit there with a guitar and an amp and just start messing around, and sometimes something really cool will pop out. Sometimes it'll turn into like almost a full song right there on the spot that gets worked out, and sometimes it's just a riff, and I will just record it and add it to the pile. But there's nothing wrong with that, because our riff pile is basically like ammunition. Like, as long as we have a bunch of ammo, like, we're good.
Yeah.
For a while, it's not detrimental. It's when you run out of ammo, and then all of a sudden you need to improvise and figure out something else really quick.
Definitely.
That scares me. I like having a big riff pile.
Of course. It's always good to stock up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I'd imagine, because I from just watching you at St. Vitus, I was able to get like an up close view of like your rig and your gear and all that. I mean, you have a decent amount of like stuff to work with too. So maybe it doesn't, like, the riff won't sound good in one setting, but you add a little more gain or a little more reverb or something, and that also can make something that didn't sound good at first sound amazing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Tone shaping and messing around with what the guitar sounds like can really impact what effect a riff has. Some riffs are meant to be lower gain. Some riffs are meant to be insanely high gain. Some riffs, would probably sound way cooler with delay and reverb. Most of ours sound good with nothing, because we need to have tight rests and stuff. But reverb and delay and stuff like flanger and chorus and stuff can be really good for atmosphere.
Yeah.
And creating like a certain mood that is unachievable if you just go dry.
Yeah. If you really want to stand out, though, in the world of guitarists, because I have yet to see one guitar player's pedal board without one MXR pedal on it. If you can, that would make you the most unique band in the world, if you just don't have an MXR pedal in any of your pedal boards.
Well, when I had my analog pedal board, I didn't have an MXR pedal on it.
And now you sold out and got one. I'm kidding.
MXR makes some really good stuff. There's a lot of companies that make really great pedals. So,
oh, yeah.
I mean, I got no specific love or hatred for any pedal maker. A lot of them make a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah, MXR, I mean, it speaks high. I mean, people use their stuff all the time. I don't care if whether you're playing smooth jazz or grindcore. It seems like everybody's resorting to MXR, so it speaks very highly of them.
Yeah, for sure. It's Dunlop. Jim Dunlop makes MXR.
Yeah, and you can't go
They
wrong
make
with
they make
Dunlop.
really good stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Big shout out to Jim Dunlop. One thing I was really curious about now, you ready for the most difficult question of the interview?
Yeah, hit me.
All right, so I've noticed with this particular album, you have a song like Don't Do It, the ending song, that's 8 minutes long. Then you have a song like Betrayed by Technology that's just under 4 minutes. You have a song like, you have a song that's 6.5 minutes, Cosmic Surgery 4.5, etc. How do you know when a song is done?
Well, structurally speaking, figuring out how the words are going to fit correctly without it getting like way too redundant and boring. That's a big factor for figuring out the skeleton of the song. How many times riffs should repeat, how many times you should have verses and choruses come. But for me, the song is done when the lyrics can portray a full concept and idea, and the music is not boring, and nothing overstays its welcome, but nothing is underserved either. Because it's a big pet peeve of mine when a band plays like a really cool piece of music, but then they only played it one time and it only lasted for like 3 seconds. Mm-hmm. Like, come on, dude! Like, play that a couple more times. That's a big thing for me, and I think also for my bandmates. If we have a really cool piece of music, we definitely want to, for lack of a better term, we want to exploit that.
Definitely.
We want to make sure that we use that really cool piece of music to the fullest extent. We don't want to waste it and have it only happen, one time for a couple seconds and then it's gone. You never hear it again.
Yeah.
So I guess the song is done when the lyrics convey a full concept and the music stays interesting but doesn't, underserve itself.
Mm-hmm. Very good explanation. Thank you for not giving me the "it's never done" or "you just feel it." Like you were very specific with that. That was a great answer. Thank you. A plus.
Yeah, some of the songs have to be done sometime, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know. Tool took their sweet ass time. So
even at that, it came out eventually. So
yeah, fair enough.
Even their songs got done.
Yeah, I would love to ask them that question. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. I hope you and everybody is safe out there. Is there just anything else with Havok that you would like to promote for the record cycle for 5?
Well, it's going to be coming out on May 1st, and if we're still all locked down, hopefully everyone will have time to jump on Spotify or YouTube or Deezer or whatever, iTunes, whatever platform they listen to music. Hopefully they'll have time to check it out. May 1st, the whole record is going to be coming out, and we will be releasing one more new song before the album drops.
Awesome.
You can look for that, I think, in about a week.
Awesome. Well, Dave, again, thank you so much. Everybody, we got Dave of Havok 5 coming out May 1st via Century Media Records. Be sure to pick it up then when supplies officially last forever, and we will see you next time from the Quarantine Zone on Heavy New York.